Hello and welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports, and we're going to do a post-service on this Cannondale Slice. Some of you might have watched the first video where I went through all of the issues that I found in my intake, and some of them were corrected and some of them I just couldn't. But I'll get into that. But if you like these kinds of videos, pre and post, or bike profile videos, please make a comment down below. And if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe to this channel. We are just stagnant at 9,100 subscribers, but 75 to 76% of you folks are not subscribed. So please subscribe. All right, well, let's start from the front end. New bar tape, and if you folks might recall, there was red bar tape here. Now, when I removed the bar tape, there was a lot of salt buildup. Let me show you what that looks like. So that was underneath. So there was red bar tape, which I believe is baseball bat grip, and then black regular bar tape, and this was this was underneath there, and unfortunately that was on the handlebar, so I had to scrub the handlebar clean to get all that corrosion off. Now I poked at it, I even used a screwdriver to see, okay, has the handlebar been compromised, and it did not seem to be compromised. So but I informed the customer that was underneath there. But yeah, so big scare at first when I pulled off the bar tape. Sorry, I'm shading that. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're gonna have to replace this base bar. But we didn't. And the customer is appreciative of the black bar tape, but he is going to wrap this with red bar tape once again, to match, the shifters and the brake tips here. There's something special for him about red. So, I think in Chinese cultures, it's a good luck thing. So, and red looks cool. One of the other things you might remember from the previous video is that this here was seized. And so the cable, everything was just seized into, sorry, that's not focusing. Let me see if I can hold it differently. There you go. So everything was seized in there. This didn't turn. So I said, look, let's just get you a new set of brakes. And he said, sure, just replace them. So we got some Tiagra calipers, and these work great. These are working fantastic. Now, the biggest issue that I was not able to resolve for him was the bottom bearing I replaced, and most of the time you get a lot of, water or whatever gets underneath here, and you have issues with the bottom bearing. But in his case, he also had the top bearing that was corroded and seized, and it was just a huge mess. And, it fell apart as I took it out. But I could not get the race off of the head tube because the head tube or the bearing seats here, they are aluminum, and the cartridge bearing is steel, so dissimilar metal. They welded in place. As a matter of fact, as I was trying to remove his headset here, all these spacers were seized in place with just so much salt and so much corrosion that, it took me a while just to get that off and to be able to pull the fork out. So what I had to do is take the bearings, clean them. It's a cartridge bearing. Clean them, get as much corrosion as I could off the bearing race, put it all back together with a ton of grease. And, you know, it's not so bad. And it's just because that was just welded in place. There was just nothing I could do to get that out. I tried heat, I tried cold, I tried lots of, you know, break free, just nothing I could get that bearing race out. And I spent way too much time on that. And so anyway, that's how we resolved this situation, because I could never get the bearing race out to put a new bearing in. So the bearing, there's no knocking or any slop in the headset, so we're good there. Moving back, both of his fittings here, the one underneath here and this one, this I guess at some point was epoxied or glued onto the frame. It's loose. There's just nothing holding it onto the frame anymore. And this fitting that goes in here is seized, so I can't get that fitting out either. So this particular brake cable housing was not replaced, but all the other cables and housing for shifting and for the brakes was replaced, and they all have new cables. But yeah, so what do I have to do to keep that in place? I have to zip tie that on there. And the same thing on this one here underneath, if that comes into focus. So, you know, there's just so much corrosion and abuse on this bike that, yeah, that's the only way we can get it to work. His chain rings were completely worn. Excuse me a minute. And I shot a video about this just separately, but you can just see how pointy and how flat the tops are on the new chain ring. Inside chain ring as well, you could just see how flat those tops are for the inside chain ring. And you can see here how pointy these are. We replaced the chain rings, and the pulleys. I was going to charge him for new pulleys, but, and you could just see how pointy these are. Let's see. But for some reason, his rear derailleur, which in the previous video we talked about this, his rear derailleur slammed into his spokes. And I believe the cage or something here was bent. There was just no way to get that rear derailleur to work properly. So luckily I had a Dura 7800 10-speed derailleur. It gets a little bit of an upgrade from his 105, and now everything shifts just perfectly. I didn't need to replace the rear derailleur hanger. I bent that and aligned that much better. So initially I thought we were going to replace the rear derailleur hanger because of the incident of the rear derailleur going into the spokes. The rear wheel was very out of true. And this is one of those wheels where you can see it's internal nipples. So what you have to do is you have to take the tire, the tube, the rim strip off, and then the rim strip was compromised. And what I mean by compromised is that you could see like the spoke holes have made in a dimple on this, and look how close that is to the edge. So this has shifted, it's migrated, and there's just no way to put this so that it's centered. It's like paper. Once you crease it, you can't uncrease it. So you can see on some of these, the dimple is right in the middle, no problem. But on some of these, it's right at the edge. And so you're just asking for this to continue to migrate and eventually make holes on your, look at this one. This one's not even near covering the whole thing. So once we put that back together, tube is well protected, wheel is nice and true, all good. But I did say to the customer that, hey, I want you to ride this wheel for a little bit and see if it comes out of true, and I will take care of it as a follow-up at no cost to you. But you know, this is the kind of thing with internal nipples. You try to de-stress the wheel, but once you actually put a tire and air pressure on there, it also settles. But in this case, it's still true, so all good. Now, one of the things I noticed was on a lot of this stuff, it looks like someone tried to just do a black on black type of setup. So I'm guessing they tried to paint. So there's a lot of, at first it looks like overspray, but then it looks deliberate. And then they also tried to cover up like some rust bubbles here and there. So there's just a lot of weird stuff going on. And so as I was trying to clean the crankset, some of that paint or whatever was on there started coming off. Well, anyway. Generally, an overhaul here is about 4 hours worth of work. So you take all the components off, clean them, inspect them, replace them, if necessary, lubricate them, and put them back in. But this bike took way, way longer than that, and it's going to be impossible for me to recoup all my labor hours. However, one thing that's very important to mention, quite a few people made a comment about, well, why put all that money into this bike? It would be better if he just looked to get a new bike. And I'm thinking, I'm sorry, folks, but I wonder where you're getting your new bikes from, because you're not going to be able to get a new tri-bike. Maybe a used one, but you're not going to get a new tri-bike for, I don't know, under $3,000, I'm guessing. So it totally makes sense to do the service on this bike, because you have a very good frame, the frame fittings notwithstanding, but you have a very good frame. The frame fits this customer, got decent set of wheels, and he has now new chain, new cassette, new chain rings, and essentially a fairly new rear derailleur. We're going to be well under, $3,000 for a new bike. And even a used bike, I don't know that he would get something in such prime condition, because it would need service. And then he'd spend, let's just say, $1,500 on a used one, or $1,000 on a used one, and then he'd still have to put in $200 to $300 in for service. I'm just throwing a guess, because most used bikes still need a run through. But yeah, we're under that price of even a used bike on the total labor of this bike. So now it's been run through by a professional. It took him 10 years to come through here. If you take the amount he spent, and it took him 10 years to come in here, let's just say he's averaging a service of about $130 per year. I'm just throwing some numbers out. I don't know what the final invoice is yet. But yeah, I think he did okay, but that's just my opinion. I'm someone that if you have something of quality to start with, everything else can be fixed, repaired, replaced, lubricated, whatever. And so this is now a bike that he can go back out and race. Funny thing is, with triathletes, I know that they're pretty sentimental and you can see that there's several in here. So I didn't peel his race numbers off because there's plenty there, and it seems like he wants to keep them there, so we're not going to do that. Also, this rack was so loose when he brought it in that everything rattled when I moved the bike around in the shop. So yeah, that's where we're at with this bike. Everything came together actually quite nicely once we dealt with a lot of the corrosion and salt deposits that were all over this bike. But he said something about forgetting the bike or the something, and I said, look, I'd like to forget this whole thing. I'd like to forget the fact that your bike and I ever met, but I'm just teasing, of course. I think he'll be happy. Everything on here is really came out well. All right, well, that is all for today. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you up the road.